Welcome back to OpenLine. We might as well just call this segment Social Media, the good, the bad, the ugly, because that's kind of been the flow of our conversation tonight. Certainly, no doubt, there are some good things about social media. Certainly, no doubt, there are some concerning things for parents, for kids, for all ages that use social media. And guiding us through this conversation is Dr. Katie Spirko from Lipscomb University, talking about the psychology and all aspects of social media. Before we get into some more questions that I have, I know that Wayne is on line one with us. Wayne, I hear you have a comment you want to share.
Yes, it's regarding like attention deficit disorder. We get all kinds of messages and high-speed visual imagery that you can develop attention deficit disorder by high-speed visual imagery. You're constantly bombarded with messages. And I read this book about multiple messages within a message, and you get that. You get underlying messages like with commercials. They have a sexual connotation, but nowadays it's not even a connotation. It's very direct. And these social media venues, you can open doors that will take you where you don't want to go. That's a FCC rule violation. We've got so many FCC rule violations, even on this general programming. You flip through channels, people are talking about the sodomy agenda, the homosexual agenda. We've got all kinds of cross-gender encouraging that doctrine at the national level, and it filters throughout the school. You can't preach biblical precepts, but you can tell somebody they don't even know what gender they are. But the Bible says God is not the author of confusion.
Wayne, I want to keep you on topic. Let's keep talking about social media. I know what point you're trying to make, but I want to keep us on topic here, if that's okay.
I want to give this one verse. God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and love. That's not mine. And also, there's a fairness doctrine. Fairness doctrine.
I'm going to cut you off, Wayne, just because I know what point he's trying to make, but we're kind of getting away from the topic at hand on social media. But I think, the point that he is trying to make, and I think it's a fair one, is, social media can be a portal to a lot of different things. And obviously, parents, that's going to be something they want to keep in the back of their mind, too.
Well, I think he brought up a great point about ADHD, too. That's certainly relevant. I do a lot of ADHD evaluations, and I know that's a definite concern for parents with, I think, it's a more and more common diagnosis these days. About 40% of kids and teenagers who meet diagnostic criteria for ADHD are neurotypical, meaning that on neuropsychological assessment, formal testing, we're not going to see anything that's amiss or anything that's wrong. Reason for that is when we're doing formal testing, we're putting a child in a distraction-free environment where the evaluator is kind of acting as the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that is not fully developed with ADHD. And that's not how kids are learning. Kids are learning where there are a wealth of distractions and other ways of pulling attention. And with ADHD, unfortunately, because it's named attention deficit disorder, we think of it as a lack of attention or not having enough ability to focus or concentrate. It's really more a deficit in your ability to divide and prioritize what you're attending to. So there are aspects of not having enough attention somewhere, but there are also aspects of being hyper-focused or having trouble shifting away your attention. So when you have something like social media on smartphones where they're designed to be captivating and user-friendly and designed to be able to quickly go in and get a lot of reinforcement. You're getting your dopamine signaling is just going off whenever you get a new notification or announcement or someone liked your post. When kids' brains are still developing and that part of your brain that is impaired doesn't fully develop until you're in your mid-20s. So whether a child has any kind of neurodevelopmental delay or impairment at all or not, you combine this frequent exposure to something that works very much like slot machines and casinos, where it's just designed to kind of pull your attention and pull you in. And you have that just available all the time when a child's trying to do homework or reading or something that is less captivating. You add in that there's sleep issues that come up and your kids are getting 7 or less hours of sleep a night. It's a recipe for disaster in terms of developing ADHD. So I certainly see a link between the increase, and this is me speculating just personally, anecdotally from my own clinical experience, but I certainly do see a link in social media exposure and the overuse of social media with the increase in ADHD diagnoses. And it's a symptom-based diagnosis, meaning if you meet the criteria by way of what your teachers and parents are reporting in your symptoms, you meet the criteria. It's not something where you can do a blood test or screen it neurologically or medically like cancer or another disease. So I think it's a great point that when we're wanting our kids to develop those concentration and focus skills, it's a muscle like anything else. And we want to give them tools to continue to develop and succeed in that area. And we do need to recognize that having a captivating, distracting device constantly available is certainly working against those goals.
Absolutely. And to that point, social media companies by design are, with algorithms trying to draw you in and trying to give you more content they assume that you're going to like. And that, I'm sure, feeds into that. When you look at the algorithms that, if you're into a certain thing, like, I'm into outdoors things, then, Facebook obviously prioritizes those posts on my social media account. So I'm sure that doesn't help when you're talking about ADD and ADHD.
Absolutely. And individuals who are more easily distracted and more easily, or I'll say more impulsive, and will spend more time on social media, they're more valuable assets for these platforms. You just have more access to someone to sell them more product and to gain more information from them. And depressed and anxious people are better assets. When you think about selling, when you're depressed and you're anxious, especially when you're anxious, we call it a fight or flight response. Your sympathetic nervous system kicks in, where blood is quite literally flowing out of your brain and into your limbs. It works great if you want to fight off a bear, but in terms of complex reasoning and a lot of the situations now currently in society that make us anxious, our physiology is really working against us. And so you get someone anxious, and I think some of the points about either disinformation or controversial topics coming up and people getting upset and arguing over topics on social media, it places people in that point of anxiety where they're going to be less likely to make thoughtful decisions or inhibit an impulsive response. They're going to be more likely to act in a way that will make the platforms more money. And so you're really kind of falling right into what they're wanting you to do.
Obviously, parents constantly probably fighting the distraction of social media. I'm curious, from a parent's perspective, should social media be allowed during homework time, or how do you kind of set those boundaries if you are a parent that's maybe struggling to compete with some of the distractions that are on people's phones?
From what we have right now in terms of evidence and the research, keep those smartphones away from your kids when they're doing their homework. It is distracting. We do not multitask well. No one is a good multitasker. Our brains work best when we're focusing on one thing at a time, and having a device that is visible, even if they're silenced and they're not using it, just having it visible is it's a classical conditioning paired stimulus where you know it's there, you're not going to have all your focus on your homework. So teaching your kids to put it away, plug it in and go charge it in the other room, but keeping it away from environments where you don't want that stimulus to be conditioned. I think, and that's another reason beyond homework, again, keep them out of the bedrooms. The anxiety and excitement associated with those posts will and does interfere with sleep as well.
Absolutely. Slightly different topic, but still obviously in the social media umbrella. And I was reminded of it because we had a caller mention it from the very first call that we answered. When you talk about misinformation, it seems like a lot of the social media accounts or companies have tried to make a push in the last couple of years against misinformation. And of course, that has only grown, especially you see it play out time and time again with the pandemic. Is that a battle that social media companies can win? I mean, or is there more that they can do, or, how? And then, if not, are there things everyday users can do to kind of help combat misinformation?
That's such a complicated question. And I think what they should do is certainly, I don't know what they should do. I'm just glad I'm not making those decisions. But in terms of sanctioning posts or trying to lessen the amount of misinformation or disinformation out there. Again, it's a company. They can do what they want as long as they're practicing within the realm of the law. You don't like it, stop using Instagram, stop using Facebook. You're not needing to be on there at all. And so the way to voice your opinion by that is to not use the platform. I think, you see a lot of posts of people kind of talking about their First Amendment rights and Facebook taking those away. Our First Amendment rights protect us from the government, not from Facebook. As a private company, they can do what they want, really, and it's up to you to decide whether you want to use their services or not.
Absolutely. I think we can't focus on that point enough, that, we think of these social media platforms as like the public stage and the public platform, but they are private companies, and like Katie said, they can do what they want. We have to do something real quick. We have to take a break, but we'll be right back after this.